Welcome back to the Shabbos Treasures series. I'm Gila Ross, host of the Power Up podcast, and I'm here together with my co-host,
Rabbi Samuel Ross, and we are delighted to be able to share a weekly idea that you can take into your Shabbos and upgrade and beautify immediately. Enjoy.
So we are going to start with a can you guess the theme? Okay.
Did we play this theme last week?
We did.
Oh, that's...
You guys loved it so much. You asked for a repeat. I had, my phone was exploding with messages. So how could I say no? And everyone's wondering who did that. Okay, so let's start with can you guess the theme? I'm going to tell you 4 things that are problematic on Shabbos, and you're going to see if you can figure out what the theme between all of them. Okay, so the first one is snow. The second one is warming up chocolate chip cookies on a Shabbat hot plate, where the chocolate's going to melt.
And probably the margarine and everything in it too, or the other goodies, clog up the arteries.
The third one is squeezing or shampooing your hair. And the fourth one is brushing teeth.
I got to tell you, before you got to 3 or maybe 4, I was thinking, we're going somewhere with food or with chocolate, and then there we are with brushing teeth and hair. So again, these are 4 potential problems. We haven't yet filled you in whether they are or they're not.
Can anyone sort of see if they can figure out the theme?
And again, Gil, what are the 4? Just a couple of words.
What was the first one? I missed the first one, sorry.
Crushing snow. So if let's say you pick up a handful of snow in your hands and you crush it. Second one is warming up chocolate chip cookies. Third one is squeezing or shampooing your hair. And the fourth one is brushing your teeth.
Is it to do with forming something like from a solid to a liquid or liquid to a solid?
Oh.
You're good after 14 hours of work.
Yes.
Oh my God, maybe I should do this more often.
It suits you, right?
I feel like I need to put my glasses on and everything now.
4 13-hour shifts is what we need every week, apparently, Bev. Should we give them the answer since Bev got us so close?
Bev's done a great job. So maybe we can even, let's take you back a week. So those of you who are either with us last week, or you're all with us in one form or another, Zoom, or whether it was with the notes, or whether it was with the recording. If you remember last week, we were really dealing with, grapes and strawberries and lemon teas and things like that and washing up. But the principle we saw last week was, it was taking the liquid from a solid, right? Breaking apart something to be able to get the liquid out, whether it was the honeycomb with the honey, the piece from the pods, the lemon juice from the lemon, that was what we were basically looking at, right? Getting like one substance out of another. So where we're going to connect this tonight is, we are now going to look at, again, this is, we're actually going to spend a second week looking at the same malacha, which is of what we call dosh, threshing. I got no better words. Again, you saw last week, it's really the extracting of liquids from solids. But the point is, we're going to have a second week because, yes, we looked at our how to wash up on Shabbos, the worry of squeezing out, the schmatters, the towels, squeezing out lemons into tea. We saw that type of stuff. But there is, we've got quite a bit of a way to go tonight. So we are going to do a second part of this, and these are actually all the rabbinic elements of what we saw last week. So this is where it starts. So I'm going to tell you one line of Gemara, one piece of Talmud, and then maybe Gila will fill us in terms of where the great rabbis went from there.
Maybe she will, maybe she won't.
We shall have to wait and see, hey?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Gemara tells us, it's like a phrase. It says one should not crush snow and hail on Shabbos for the purpose of producing water. That's all it tells us. Don't crush snow and hail on Shabbos if you want to produce water. So there is information that's ambiguous and left out. such as the reason for it, and it's hotly disputed amongst the early commentators. There's actually 3 different reasons. But
Turn it down now.
for that tonight, for the purposes of just trying to make it more simple. But it doesn't really tell us the reason for it, and what exactly does it mean of producing water if you're not producing water. But again, that is the principle. You're not going to be able to get hold of this snow. Some kid has annoyed you, most likely your own, and you want to crash water over them. So it seems that is a big problem. Or is it? You're trying to produce water. So this is the question. What do we learn out from this piece of Talmud, this line of Gemara? So, Gila, is it something you would like to fill us in with? Wonderful.
Okay, so what does it extend to? It extends to crushing or warming ice, butter, congealed fat, or similar substance in order to cause it to melt or dissolve. Okay.
So,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt, Gila. So in all of the previous kind of laws we've looked at, we've said intent, it doesn't matter what the intention is.
Right.
But it sounds like this one is saying with the intention of turning it to water.
So that is a great point. So the first thing I want to say is probably wait about 10 minutes and you'll see exactly how it works. But I want to make a very, very important point here. Once anything is biblical, such as what we did last week, intention is totally irrelevant. In most rabbinic areas, it's irrelevant too, but what we're going to do tonight are basically the rabbinic areas that we learn from what we learned last week. So here, the rabbis, when they set something up as a safeguard, and they said it's only when there's intention to do something, then it could well be different. But you're asking a very, very important question, Hayden, and it's not a small question, because again, we'll see as we're going along that under most circumstances, when it comes to laws of Shabbos, intention is going to be irrelevant. As I've said in the past, the one exception may be when you've got no intention and it's unlikely that the result will happen. Like statistically, what I'm going to do, it won't actually lead to it. But that's nothing necessarily to do with intention, that's to do with the outcome. But when the rabbi says something as a safeguard, I can't be, probably clearer than this, then it's only when they set it up under those circumstances. So tonight, what we're going to look at really are the circumstances that they set that up under, right? Because they were like, there is what's their real concern? The concern is that crushing grapes is a problem. We saw that last week. The biblical problem of this is crushing grapes. So their concern was that these elements, these activities, like crushing or warming ice cream, butter, congealed fat, it's going to cause it to melt or dissolve, break down solids or even semi-solids. Their concern was that this is too similar to grapes, to crushing of grapes. Okay? And I want to say the following. There are quite likely 2 other reasons that are no good as well. We're not going to go that way tonight because it's going to confuse things. There are probably 2 to 3 reasons that this is no good, but the one that we're going with tonight, and this is probably the most significant one, is that at the end of the day, it's too similar that it resembles the crushing of grapes. So, but again, because the rabbis set this up, the question is how much intention plays a part. So again, just for the sake of clarity, I think, again, what we've seen is the Gemara tells us you can't crush snow and hail on Shabbos to produce water. So we've seen it's a problem to produce liquids by breaking down solids or even semi-solids. So again, we're thinking all our delicious things, our ice cream, right? To dissolve ice cream is, to crush it is going to be a problem. Could cause it to melt. Butter or fat, these types of things potentially could be a problem. Now, we've got the principle there. Now we're going to have to see when yes and when no. So now we're going to have a bit of a look at ice cubes. Okay? Does anyone here use ice cubes? We don't even bother in England. It's like 3 weeks a year. In Canada, big deal there. The bags of ice cubes in the freezer. But does anybody use ice cubes anymore? No.
We do. It's the only time. Friday night is the only time we have fizzy drinks. There's a bit of a treat for the kids, and they always have ice cubes with it.
Yeah, you need ice cubes.
Yeah.
So now we're going to discuss when we can use ice cubes.
You will be happy to hear that you can put ice cubes into a liquid to melt. So you could, if you have a cup of drink, soda, fizzy drink, or whatever it is, you could put ice cubes in it to melt. And you could even like crush it into smaller ice cubes, ice fragments, to put it immediately into your drink, as long as you're not trying to produce water.
Right, that's Hayden's idea of the intention, right? You couldn't just, smash it up if you wanted, I guess, to produce the water. But if you, somehow, it's not properly broken up, in my pack that I bought, because I can't use my automatic ice dispenser machine on Shabbos. So now,
not just because you don't have one.
Right. Well, that may be our problem. But when it comes down to it, I'm not doing it for the sake of the water. I'm putting it straight in my drink, and even if it dissolves while it's in the drink, so that's going to be fine. Okay, so that's going to be the ice cubes. And I think if you had to really sum up a key, Gil, how would you really sum up the key of what is going on here?
So anything that you're trying to break it down into a liquid, you can't do. So for example, if like when you get like a slushy or iced coffee or something, and you drink it and then it's just the icy bits at the bottom, and you stir it to sort of melt some of it, that would be problematic on Shabbos, because what you're doing there is you're stirring it in order to get some of the liquid there, so you could drink it. Similarly, if you're playing with snow, if you've got a handful of snow and you're squeezing it in order to melt it, turn it into water, that would be a problem.
Right, but you mean that to throw at your kid could be okay? Whoa, awesome! A lot of smiles tonight from that.
Yeah,
and nods. Yeah. So there you have it. So that really is the key. Anything, I think it's going to say so nicely. Anything that is trying to break it down into a liquid, then you got a problem. So I know in England, I think you call it slush. In Canada, they call it slurpy. So you can't, especially try and break that down. Okay, great. We're gonna give you one interesting case study. It's not the end of the world, but we want to bring this up just to show how far they could potentially go. Does anybody use, like these whipped toppings, like from a can? It goes, when it comes out.
Yeah, unigate. Yeah.
So I got to tell you that in the end, there are many opinions that you could use it on Shabbos, but there are some who hold for the same reason and concept you couldn't. I want to tell you again, in the end, there are enough who say you can, so you don't have to stop doing this one. I wanted to show you how far, the concept could go. There are some who say when it's inside, it's like in a liquid form. And then it comes out, like for the first 5 minutes, it's more of a foam. Then eventually it turns into a liquid again. So there are those who go as far as saying, well, this concept would extend to that as well. If you use it, I would carry on using it. There are definitely, there's enough rabbis who say you can use it, but I wanted to show you how far the concept could go. Okay, now they're all here to find out if they can melt their margarine that's inside their, inside their whatever they've made for their pudding. So what are we going to do now with our, we want to warm up our dessert on the hot plate. Now, the reason I'm saying a hot plate is because, on Shabbos, we haven't really done the laws of cooking yet. That's in a few weeks' time. But we can't really cook on Shabbos. So a Shabbos hot plate is a permissible way of cooking under many circumstances. Again, we'll discuss in a couple of weeks. Not cooking, heating up. So now you've got your whatever you've got. So now you want to warm it up. Your delicious, and I'm sure it's got lots of margarine in it, right? Otherwise it wouldn't taste so good. It probably doesn't have butter in it because you probably had a meat meal. So now how do we go about warming it up? So again, there's always going to be two problems. One is going to be the potential cooking element. Can you cook something? But let's assume, for argument's sake, that it's not a problem, that we're warming it up on the hot plate and we're allowed to. But this is the potential issue. The potential issue is, again, as Hayden said at the beginning, about changing substances. And Bev was saying you can't change substances. So it gets a little bit complicated and a little bit messy. When let's say you've got your margarine inside a cake, but as you know, you've been to our house, we do warm these things up. The desserts come out warm. They were not baked on Shabbos. Yeah, but yet they come out warm. Andrew, you haven't had the chance to try this yet, but they come out warm. So, but yet, you're changing the substance. So the reason it's
the chocolate.
Yeah. So
it's because you put it on the hot plate before Shabbos.
Right. So then that would anyway be okay. This is, again, there's two particular issues. One is of the cooking and one is of, changing the substance. And in terms of changing the substance, It's going to be okay if it's being absorbed in a solid substance. Again, it's only a problem when you're dissolving it for the sake of it. But I guess if it's being absorbed, into a cake or something like that, it's a part of it. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But it's an interesting one. Like chocolate, you couldn't get a piece of chocolate and melt it, onto something. A hot piece of cake and get a fresh piece of chocolate and melt it onto it. You couldn't do that. Or you couldn't get ice cream and melt it onto something because of the laws of cooking, you've got a problem. But I think if the chocolate was already cooked beforehand and it had melted, so that it wouldn't be a problem of cooking. But in terms of changing of the substance, as long as it's in something, it's within a cake or whatever it is, it's within a solid substance, you're going to be okay. But I think before we go to the wet hair, the hair and the toothbrush, let's just sum up what we said because it's complicated. Let me just sum up what we said, and then I think maybe you'll do the hair and the toothbrush. Okay. So let's just go over what we've said. What we've said so far tonight is that what we saw last week about the grapes and crushing the grapes and getting out the liquid is even going to apply to things like snow, to things like liquids, melting ice cream, butter, ice, snow, all of those types of things. When is it going to be okay? It's going to be okay if you put it into liquids. You can put ice cubes in liquid, and it's going to be okay if you don't intend to melt it, or when there's a solid food there. So like if you got your margarine as part of cake and it's changing substance on the hot plate, but it's got a solid cake, it's part of it. So that's not going to be a problem. So you could indeed, warm up your cake, even though the margarine will change substance because it's part of something solid. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Or if not, we'll go to the hair and the...
Just one, actually. Just
yes.
The dosh, I understand that it applies to things that have grown either from the tree or from the ground. Yeah. Let's say if we're talking about fat I'm thinking about washing up because that is my job. So if we're talking about fat on a dish and I want to put some detergent on it and let it soak, that's going to lift the fat off the dish. The detergent is going to bind to the molecules, the fat molecules, and then disperse it into the water. So is that problematic?
It's an excellent question, and I read up about this. I read up about this about an hour ago. It's an excellent question. You know what? I want to give you the full answer. I think I recall the answer. I looked at so many different questions over the last few hours. It's an excellent question that is discussed. I'm going to come back to you either by the end of tonight's session, and if not, because it's going to move into the hair and the toothbrush. I've got to find where I said it. If not, I'm going to send it to you later. Jeremy is asking an excellent question. In ways that you're allowed to wash up, the reality is that the gunk, changes substance. So fantastic question. Okay, thank you.
All right. So if your hair becomes wet on Shabbos, you can't squeeze it. You can't squeeze the water out of it, right? Similarly, shampooing your hair is the same problem. Okay? So what you have to do is, let's say you get caught in a rain shower, right? And your hair gets soaking wet. So the way to dry it is to wrap a towel around your hair to absorb the wetness, right? As opposed to squeezing the water out, you just wrap a towel around your head and let it sort of dry that way. Now, in terms of brushing teeth, what you can use on Shabbos is you can use a dry toothbrush, as long as it's done gently, so that it's not going to cause, if someone is prone, that is the word. If someone is prone to bleeding when they brush their teeth, then you have to take care to brush your teeth gently enough so that you're not going to cause any bleeding, because bleeding that comes under a different that comes under here. Sorry, and a wet toothbrush is a problem because it involves pressing the bristles, the wet bristles of the toothbrush against the teeth. Toothpaste, as we'll see later, is a separate issue. But you could use a dry toothbrush.
Okay, To make sure that these hard laws were clearly given over, let's do another fun game. How does one brush their teeth on Shabbos? Anybody want to stab at that one? Or a brush at that one?
Very carefully.
Very carefully in order that it doesn't bleed. And what else?
I don't know, a dry toothbrush.
Dry has to be dry. It has to be dry because
Soft, don't make your gums bleed.
yeah. And what do you do about toothpaste? Toothpaste is that.
Has it got to be a certain amount, or can you not use any?
Toothpaste is totally out. There happens to be that there, whatever, for another time. That there
Can you use mouthwash?
Yes, there are these innovators in America that keep producing ways of halachically being able to do these things on Shabbos. Like
Is there not the Theramed, which is the
sorry?
Is there not the Theramed, which is the toothpaste that doesn't the tube? You don't change the shape of the tube when you squeeze it out. Right. It's more of like a gel.
Yeah. So I'm not familiar with it, but again, it's under a different one of the 39 types of what. But yeah, that's the potential problem. So it could be that would be a very clever way of dealing with it. And
it's more of like it's like in a plastic bottle, so it doesn't change shape.
Yeah. So again, it could be that these people in America have spent a lot of money producing that, and it could be there's a much cheaper way of getting it. Yeah. So
no, it's just a brand you can get here. It just so happens to be in a plastic bottle as opposed.
Just happens to be in a plastic bottle. So again, it could also be how thick it is. That might be an issue as well. But potentially that could be a solution. Thank you, Richard. Okay, and again, drying hair we saw. How does one not dry hair? Or how does one dry hair?
Put a towel on.
Just put a towel. Excellent. And are we okay with crushing ice? How do we enjoy our ice cubes on Shabbos? This is one time you put it straight inside the drink, right? The truth is, we didn't go into it. You could actually bring a bowl to the table with ice cubes in it, because again, you don't have any intention of them melting. And like it is, by the time they come, people will put them in their cups. You could actually bring it in a bowl as well. But we're just trying to stay away from, just crushing and dissolving water and ice for the sake of it. Okay, guys, that was excellent. And I've got Jeremy's question to come back to about the changing of the substance when you wash up the grime and all that. Excellent question. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your feedback. You can find me on Instagram. It's Gila Ross. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.